Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a competitive edge in a crowded marketplace so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm answering a question that I actually get quite often from designers and others who do accessibility work. And that is, how do you show accessibility work in your portfolio? Especially if you didn't design the original project. This is a great question, and I have a lot to say about it. So I'm going to break down how you can present your accessibility work clearly and confidently, whether you designed something accessibly from the start, or maybe you collaborated with another designer or agency and they did the creative work, or maybe you remediated an existing PDF or a website and you didn't do any creative work. I'm going to give you practical, real-world ways to present this accessibility work in your portfolio. And that's so potential clients can clearly understand the work that you did and also how you did it and the impact of your accessibility work, and all without getting lost in overly technical details. I'll tell you what to show in each situation and what to say. First, let's talk about when you're tasked with designing something accessibly from the start. Now, this situation is much more cut and dry, right? You can show the design work just as you would any other design work in your portfolio. But because you also did accessibility work as part of that, you also want to talk about what you did there. So to give you an idea of what I mean, I'll talk about what I do. In my online portfolio, for all of my projects, I have a section called Summary of the Work, and that's where I list the high-level tasks of what I did. For an accessible document that I recently designed and laid out, in that section I listed out accessible publication template design, because it was a template that I created. Accessible design and layout in InDesign. Infographic design. Writing alt text. Interactive form creation. PDF accessibility work. Automated and manual checks for accessibility and good usability, including but not limited to screen reader and keyboard testing. Now, for an accessible website I designed and coded, I listed accessible website design, customization of the back end of the website to include instructions for maintaining accessibility with page content, customized theme, custom page templates, automated and manual checks, and accessibility audit. So that gives you an idea of how I do it. Now, I don't mind if you do something similar, but modify it and make it your own to what makes sense for you, right? You could call this section project details, scope of work, and so forth. You want to list out the different aspects of the projects for potential clients to see what you did. And that's because if they have a similar project, it will demonstrate to them that you're already capable of handling it. So when they look at your portfolio, they're thinking, okay, they've done accessible design, check. They've done accessible layout in InDesign, check. They can customize the back end of our website, and so forth. It's probably not necessary to get into the weeds with all this and get all technical, or for documents to show passing Acrobat or Pack reports or screenshots of the tags tree or the order pane, right? You could potentially link to the downloadable PDF, but you need to consider a few things first because it's not your content to give out, right? And your client may not want to have that made freely available, like if the document is a free guide that they use as a lead magnet, like an opt-in, for example, or if it's a digital product that they charge for. If it's a document that's posted on their website for people to access freely, then you could link to their site to where they have it. And they might actually appreciate that too, getting the link back. But I would definitely ask the client before making the document available for download from your website as opposed to linking to it on their website. They probably wouldn't want other people to encounter the PDF in search results and then get taken to your website instead of theirs. For a website that you designed, though, it's typical to link to the live website. Okay, now, as I mentioned, another situation is when you are not the designer, but you do all the accessibility work. Now, I've been in this situation often with both accessible documents and websites. I've had other designers and creative agencies, government agencies, and even large corporations send me InDesign files that I need to make as accessible as InDesign allows, and then provide an accessible PDF. And I've also had other designers provide me a website design that they wanted me to code. Now, I've only shown one of these types of project on my website, where I haven't done the design and the accessibility work. And that's because I have the accessibility work with the design that I did to show, right? I show those projects instead because, well, it serves two purposes that, I can do the design and then I can do the accessibility as well. But if you aren't the designer and you're only doing accessibility work, then here's what I would do. I would ask whoever your client is, whether that's the designer, a creative agency, a government agency, whoever you've contracted with, right? Ask them if you can show the work in your online portfolio. I would also tell them that you would provide, the appropriate credit for the design and that you'd be specifying what work you did. Now, I did this for a website where a colleague of mine designed the branding, and then I designed and coded the website based off of that. She told me it was fine to show that work in my portfolio as long as I provided a branding credit and a link back to her site. And I think most designers and creative agencies, the ones who aren't the end clients, I think most of them will be fine with this unless there's a confidentiality clause in your agreement, right? Where they don't want it even known that you worked on the project at all with them. I mean, because it would be very awkward if their client came across the work on your website and they're like, who's that? So then if you are allowed to show the work and state that what you were responsible for, then you can talk about it the way I mentioned earlier, but just with the added credit, for the design and any other requirements that they ask from you. Okay, so the next situation is very different, and that's when you've remediated a file or a website that you did not design. The accessibility work, other than the visual accessibility, the design, it's not obvious. Most of it is like behind the scenes, or under the hood. So how do you show this work to potential clients? Again, I haven't shown this work on my website because I have enough accessibility with design work, accessibility and design together to show. But what I would do is all of what I said previously, and that is ask permission to show the work, okay? Give credit where it's due, specify what your role was, like if you were the remediator, and what work you did, like made the PDF or website accessible. And then I would probably show a few before and after screenshots of some of the pages. So for example, for a PDF, I would open that in Acrobat and then take a screenshot of a page with incorrect tags or an incorrect architectural reading order, and then another screenshot of those same areas after you've remediated the document. That way you could actually show that the tags or the architectural reading order, that they were incorrect and that you fixed them. You could even potentially post a screen recording that shows an incorrect and then correct tab order. Now, I think in this situation, it would also be a great idea to show screenshots of the Acrobat and the Pack Checker results before you worked on the document, as well as after you've remediated it. The Acrobat Checker and Pack are automated checkers, as you might know, and as such, they cannot detect all accessibility issues. However, those screenshots at least give a measurable way for a prospect to assess the work that you did, even if they don't know anything about accessibility. And many clients don't. So all of these are examples of how you can just show proof of the work that you did. Now, for a website, you could show screenshots of some areas of a page that were coded incorrectly, maybe headings out of order or divs being used instead of header or footer tags, for example. You could show screenshots of Wave and other automated checker results before and after you remediated it. And again, with websites, you could even potentially post a before and after screen recording showing an incorrect and then corrected tab order, or say, hover states that you corrected too. Some other tips for presenting accessibility work in your portfolio are that you can talk about the impact of the work that you did, why it was important, which disability types are affected by the remediation work you did. So for example, if you addressed low contrast as part of your work, then you could briefly mention how fixing contrast issues made the content more accessible to sighted users in general, but especially those with a visual disability. Also, if you're doing accessibility work, make sure that your digital portfolio is accessible. You want to show that you practice what you preach. If you want to stand out from other designers, increase the value of your work, and charge more, check out my accessibility courses for graphic designers, web designers, and developers. Go to creative-boost.com/courses.